Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at the Flame Toys Transformers 01 Drift figure, which is just a really phenomenal piece. Okay, so there's a couple things we have to consider, though I'm going to bring them up as it's spinning around. This thing is really expensive, MSRP of around $300. So I'm going to be reviewing it with the assumption that you've already decided to spend $300 on a collectible action figure. Okay, so if I say something is good or a good value for the price, I'm referring to the fact that yes, it does cost $300 and you're okay with that. And then if it's actually worth it at that price point, okay? So you have to consider that this is a $300 item, which is vastly more expensive than most of the stuff we review here, because I mostly review action figures that don't cost that much. So $300 Transformer that doesn't transform. If you don't like that it doesn't transform, that's fine. We don't need to have that conversation in the comments. I totally get that some people need their Transformers to transform. It makes sense on many levels. I'm personally of the mindset that I'm never going to display it in car mode, so I might as well have a really solid action figure of robot mode. That's my preference. You can have the other preference. Let's not debate that. Let's just talk about what we have here, assuming that people want what we're looking at, potentially. Okay? Okay, so let's go ahead and get him off the stand and take a closer look. This guy stands to the top of his head, let's say 8 inches tall. We're going to go right to the top of this fin here. Of course, we have some extra height in the shoulders. And I have him pretty much standing straight up and down, just the tiniest bit of bend in the knees, which is probably how most people would have him if they're going to stand him straight up and down. And that makes him just about 21 centimeters, give or take just a tiny bit again, of course. But definitely has some decent size to him. There is die cast in this guy, which is nice. It's a very heavy figure, very solid figure, and there is just a ton of stuff going on. I personally feel like it's every bit worth the $300 price point. Again, assuming you decided to spend that much. It's all packed in here. The level of detail is just nuts. If you just look at the chest alone, look at those paint lines. They're so clean. The little circuit board type thingies, very, very well done. Looking up at the face, again, there's not a ton of detail going on in his face, but it's just so well executed. The silver on the top of the head, the face itself, very, very clean. You can see the Autobot logos are very nice on the shoulders. Tons of details going on the sides here. Move down to his arms. A little bit less detail there, but still, it's really, really packed in there, and what is there is so well executed. It's just very, very clean. I will pull the camera back out in a second, but I want to make sure you guys get a chance to see these details. All the vents on the back there, everything is painted so nicely. So well sculpted, very clean lines, both in paint and sculpt. I am very, very, very impressed with this figure. I understand why it costs that much, but it still impresses me. So I really, really couldn't be happier with this thing. It's such a well executed, very cool figure. Even things like right here. It's almost the exact same color from the main part of the trunk here to these little vent thingies, but they're painted. They're painted, and it shows up even better on camera than in person, but just so well executed. And when we get to the articulation, you're going to be even more impressed. But first, let's talk about the accessories, because this guy has a ton. We have 3 different faces. One neutral face, one angry face, and then one yelling face, and they're all done very nicely. We have a ton of hands. We have 2 fist hands, 2 thumbs up hands, 2 kind of standard gripping hands, 2 gripping hands with thumbs sticking out, 2 kind of relaxed palm hands, 2 less relaxed kind of extended finger palm hands, 2 kind of relaxed jazz hands, and then 2 kind of finger extended jazz hands. So plenty of options there. We do also have 2 of his smaller swords, and each of the swords have a little clip on them, which is nice because that's how it connects to the figure. I'll show you that in a little bit. But each sword has its own scabbard, so they can come out, of course. And they're very well detailed. No problems at all. They're very clean line work, and they fit in the scabbards nicely. And then we have the one giant big katana type sword, which is even more detailed and awesome. And of course that comes out of the scabbard, and it's very well detailed and painted. So you can just kind of pull on the handle there, and it has a really nice feature where it splits open and just looks like a really badass sword. Lots of really nice details in there, tons of clean sculpt work, the translucent plastic with the changing colors inside, just very, very well executed. And of course the little clip on there can also be removed or left on it depending on how you want to pose him. We do also have his cloak, which is a wired piece of cloth with some really cool paintwork and detailing on there. We also have like a scarf type piece, which is nice. And then lastly, we have a big ass mech type display base with some adjustable pieces so you can pose it however you want. So loads of accessories, very nicely executed accessories. But wait, there's more before we go to the articulation. This guy lights up, and you guys know how I feel about things lighting up. It's always awesome. Light up figures are the best, and unfortunately, they're not always executed as well as we might hope. Luckily, this guy is, like I said, every penny worth for this figure. So this guy has a battery compartment up here at the top of each shoulder, and it does come with the batteries, which is a very nice thing because it has a few different sizes and they're not necessarily the kind you'd have on hand. There's a battery compartment up in each shoulder, there's one in his back, and then each of these things on the legs, they all have batteries in them. So there are a couple switches to flip, which I'm going to show you in just a second, but I want to show you this feature first. These don't have a switch to flip. These shoulder pads, you just lift up right here like this, and that turns on the battery. So this part lifts up, and when you do that, these stick out and these things rotate. It's a very cool little feature. It's not the most dynamic thing ever, but it's still very well designed. These engine thingies stick out back here, these rotate, and again it turns on the lights. Now you can see it's lit up. It doesn't look very bright because of the studio lighting. I will turn off the lights, at least some, so you can see that. So that's how you turn on the shoulder pads. Make sure you lift it up all the way. There's kind of like a little notch that lets you know it's turned on. So that turns on the shoulder pads. You have the two yellow lights there, and then the Autobot logos are glowing, so that's really cool. And then for the chest lights, there's a compartment in here for the batteries, but the switch is actually up here. Little tiny switch, and I'm going to use his hand to flip the switch because I don't think I can get it with my big old fingers. So let me flip that switch. There we go. So when you flip that switch, that lights up his chest and his eyes, and they're very well done. And then for these guys, these just pop off, and you can flip the switch very easily and pop them right back on. And that makes the two side pieces on the legs glow. I'll move my hand so you can see it in just a second. And there you go. So there are all the lights. So you have the ones in the shoulders, the chest, and in the legs. And the thing I like about these lights so much is oftentimes when we have lights like this, you just see an LED stuck in there, but that's not what these are. These have like a frosty finish to them, so it actually looks like a glowing light rather than a flashlight. So let me go ahead and turn off the studio lights just a little bit so you can see what this guy looks like in all of his glory. And boy, do I love the way he looks when he lights up. Very, very cool. Let me do that. There we go. Okay, let's turn off these lights. And maybe some of these lights. And some of these lights. So many lights. Maybe we'll just turn off all the lights. Actually, let's leave it like that. That gives you a good idea. So then we have kind of like some dynamic lighting. It looks cool and stuff. But yeah, the lights are just so nice. So well executed. I love that they have their own switches. Very, very nicely done. I love that, the way they glow. Very cool. Love it. Love it. Autobot logo, so clean. Leg things are a lot less interesting than the rest of them, but it kind of balances out the figure. Love it. So cool. So very cool. Okay, let me get the lights turned off on the figure, turned back on for the studio, and then we'll go through the articulation. Alright, so all the lights are turned off, so let's go ahead and do this. The head is on a ball peg, so it leans side to side. The neck is also on a ball peg, by the way. So full lean side to side. Looking up is definitely a little bit limited. Doesn't have the best range. Looking down, much better, but he's kind of looking at his own chest. But still, it's a Transformer, what are you going to do? And then, of course, you have your full rotation. Be careful, the chin can bump into the chest, but it can clear it also. So just be careful with that. These guys, they can kind of come off if you bump them, but if you bump them the wrong way, they'll pop off in a bad way, as in breaking. But you take that part off to swap out his face. So there's a little bit of insurance against breakage, but be extra careful, all right? You don't want to break anything here. For the shoulders, it's a very nice design because these guys, The shoulder pad itself can just kind of move around on a ball peg, and the shoulder has a butterfly joint. Let me show you from the back because it's easier to see. The whole thing moves out, which is, of course, it's easy to do on a mecha compared to like a human figure, but that's a very nice feature. It kind of just pops out his entire chest from the back, so it pops out his back, but it allows the arm to come across the chest a little bit better, and that's nice. And then you also have kind of a reverse butterfly joint on the other side of that, so you can do both, and it just really broadens out the arm and gives you better range, or you can push them all in. Very nice mechanic there. This piece is hinged. It's spring-loaded. That's a very nice feature. You don't even really need it. You can raise the arm pretty well without it, but if you really want to, you can open it up a little bit farther, and you can raise the arm all the way up. No problem at all. Very, very well done. Love that they put so much thought into this guy. Of course, you have your rotation that lets the arm rotate. No problem at all. Very well executed. You do also have, let me move it back down. So you have your hinge that you just saw. Full bicep swivel right there. Double jointed elbow with pretty much as much range as you can fit into there, because of course he's going to bump into something there, but that's very nice. This piece is spring loaded so that you can rotate the forearm around to have them on the outside or on the back. So that's nice, and then it's still fully painted on the inside right there. So really, they didn't leave any part of this figure unconsidered, let's say. So you also have your wrists are on a ball peg with just like a floating piece in there to keep the gap filled in. But this piece moves around on a ball peg inside, so you can move the hands around very nicely within that forearm piece. Very good range, and of course rotation on that peg. So that's very, very nice. Now for the chest, we have some pretty complex joints. We have a hinge that lets it lean all the way forward at the top. This piece right here leans back a little bit, of course, too. So that's it leaning back. And then, of course, all the way forward. Very nicely done. These kind of tuck in on each other up here, so that's good. If you want to lean side to side, you have to do that down at the lower torso, but it does work. You can see this part right here. The part behind these fins, it kind of stays in place, and the front part rotates around on top of it. So it's kind of like just a gap filler, but it works very nicely. So lean side to side, front to back, no problem. Full waist twist right there. Well, not full. I guess you get most of it. Probably enough. These pieces right here, I'm not sure if they're supposed to stay in. This one stays in. For whatever reason, this one pops out. I'm thinking it's supposed to be glued in because that's where the swords connect. And we're going to get to that. I will remember to do it at the last part of the review. I promise it'll be there. I won't forget it. These guys, much like your Robot Damashi figures, ball peg for the skirt armor that allows the legs to move, no problem at all. Same thing in the back. Let me get the arm out of the way. So those guys get out of the way completely. And then for the hips, you can bring the leg all the way out, full splits, even farther. Really no problem at all. It's a kind of a complex, mostly die-cast joint, but really, really good range, and it's stiff enough to hold it. Of course, he won't balance that way. You'll have to do something about that, but it's stiff enough to hold the leg itself. And then, of course, you can bring the leg all the way forward, even farther than horizontal. I'm telling you guys, every bit worth that $300. If you can convince yourself to spend that much, you will not be disappointed. Very, very nice. And it goes all the way back as well. Not quite as far, but pretty close. You do have a thigh swivel, which gives you really nice range. Now watch this. There's still more. When you bend the knees, there's like 15 parts in it that move. Okay, so I'm just going to bend the top part of the knee for now. And the whole thigh panel on the front comes forward, and it exposes more painted and sculpted parts. And then we have some other joints moving in the front. You see how it's got a hinge and a slide going on? This whole piece kind of just pulls forward and tucks in. Very, very well executed. And then the lower part of the knee moves independent of this part. So you have this kind of gear looking piece that becomes exposed. And then on the back, there's a hinge here and some sliding going on and some things tucking in back here. And it's just so well engineered. I mean, it's like this thing came out of NASA or something. Look at that. Full 180 degree bend on the knee. Everything is tucked and pulled into place. Hinged, sliding, it's just so well executed. The engineering on this thing is fantastic. Look at that. So many moving parts, and it's flawless. No super tight spots, no loose spots. full range. I can't get over it, guys. It's just really, really impressive. You know how I am about well-designed things. I appreciate it when the people making the figures appreciate the customer enough to design things as best as they can, and that's what this is. It is just so well handled. We have a hinge right here for the ankle flap, or metatarsal plate, if you want to call it that. And then the ankle itself has a big old hinge inside, which gives it a whole lot of range. It will also rotate. It could be a ball peg. I can't see inside enough, but it goes side to side as well, and it rotates. And then we also have a true ankle rocker, old school ankle rocker, which is the best kind because it's the most natural and it's the most practical. You can really just lean the entire foot, heel and all, side to side. You can go the other way if you want to, but you can go that way really, really nicely. Such a well executed thing. And then you have a toe hinge. Does anything else move? I don't think so. I think that's it. Does the heel? No. I mean, the foot does on top. Okay, so we have this. I don't know if I mentioned this. I might have. There's just so much stuff to mention. So we have another hinge down here with a fancy piece inside. I know I didn't mention the fancy piece. So that dark one right there to the left of this silver piece actually has another couple joints in there to make it move properly with the ankle. So you have the overall ankle, you have the little ankle, and then you have the toe hinge. So you really, if you can't pose this thing properly, you probably don't have hands, I'm guessing. I don't know. It's just, it's so well done. Okay, so back to that hip thing I said I was going to come back to, assuming that's a thing I said I was going to come back to and I haven't totally forgotten. These guys, these are little hinges, all right? Right here, little hinges, and you can see the little holes in there. And those holes are for these smaller swords with these big fancy scabbards, but these pegs right here go right into here, okay? And I'll be able to peg it in to show you the hinge. So you can, well, the whole thing moves around, but then those, there you go. You can hinge these around however you want to, and that's pretty nice. And of course they rotate. So that's pretty cool, and I already showed you how the swords work. So you can do that. Now, when I pop this one off, it just comes off. When I do it on this side, the whole piece comes off. So I'm thinking this one's supposed to be glued, and it just didn't glue well enough. So that's definitely a bummer, but it's not a big deal. So I can put a dab of glue on there. Nothing's going to be 100% perfect, so I can live with it if that's the only issue. Now, for the big sword, I'm going to go ahead and talk about this briefly because it's relatively important, because the little clip on this thing, let me get that out of the way. The little clip on this thing can actually come off of the sword, so you can not use it at all if you don't want to, or you can just leave it in his back. It's totally up to you, and you can technically peg it into the side if you want to also, to replace the two little scabbards, but you can put that up there and then clip this on if you want to. It is really, really big, so that's totally up to you, but you have the option of using the big sword either on his back, or I do kind of like it like this, because it's so much more like a standard katana than the little bulky swords. So you can just peg this in here. It is very bulky itself, though, so it's up to you, but you can do that. And so, come on. There it is. So you can put that there. It's definitely too big, but I figure somebody was going to ask, and so you can do that. So, yeah, guys, ultimately the verdict is 100%. If you're willing to spend the money, this is worth it. This is easily the most impressive figure I own. It is just so well planned, well executed. Just there's really nothing I can complain about other than that one piece came unglued at the hip. You know, that's going to happen. Anytime anything's made with glue, there's a chance it's going to come unglued. So I can totally live with it, but this thing is just incredible. I can't stress enough how much it's worth the money if you're willing to spend the money in the first place. That's the ringer right there. Okay, so yeah, I mean, if you guys really, really, really want to debate the idea of a non-transforming Transformers figure, I guess go ahead. If you've made it this far, you've earned the right to talk about that. But let's not have a giant argument in the comment section, okay? Let's just talk about it like we're all people who collect the same type of stuff and enjoy this hobby together. Let's do that. Let's be happy and positive, okay? All right, so there it is, guys. Definitely get it if you're so inclined and so fortunate to be able to. It's a really, really solid piece. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. I have new videos up every single day. We talk about action figures, movies, TV shows, video games, all kinds of fun stuff. So make sure you come back for that. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it. And in the meantime, keep collecting.